Hello, Cnbt 1342. This is the video for the review for week 5 of this 5-week and 2-day 6-week course. We'll be covering chapters 21, 22, and 23, and that will end this course. This is also exam 5 review. So it's lecture and review all at one time. All right, elevators and conveying systems. Chapter 30 of the IBC covers the design of this stuff, the installation, etc., etc., etc. So what is an accessible elevator? What's an accessible elevator? Accessible. Well, guess what? That's going to be tied back to ADA, right? Accessible. All right. It means it's ADA compliant. Okay? That's what it means. Okay? The elevators are to comply with ICC A117. Typical elevator cabin dimension illustrated on this page. Okay? Or illustrated, on this page. Bottom line, it means they're ADA compliant. ADA compliant. Okay, that's a hint. If you hadn't figured out yet to print the bloody test while you're going through these videos, I don't know what to tell you. All right, accessible elevator means it's ADA compliant and it meets ICC A117.1. All right. And this talks about all that stuff. The hoistways have to have fire resistant stuff. And here are all these dimensions. If you've got that test printed, you'll see that this is problem 3, or question 3 on the test, right? The dimensions. It's plug and play. Fill it in. Shouldn't have a problem. Should not have a problem. All right. Should not have a problem. All right. So these are all the minimum dimensions inside the cab to the doorway threshold, width minimum. Okay. Note that when the elevator door is centered on the elevator car, the dimensions are different than those illustrated. See ICC A117.1. Okay, hoistways are to have fire resistant ratings. Let's erase that. Hoistways are to have fire resistant ratings. The hoistways are to have fire resistance ratings as required by Chapter 6 and 7, doors and elevator shafts, including the elevator cars, to comply with the requirements of Chapter 7. This is the hoistway and this is the car. Okay, here are the dimensions. This should be an easy giveaway. All right. For question 3. An emergency two-way communication system is to be provided in the elevators. And the communication system is to allow two-way communication for persons who are deaf, hearing impaired, or speech impaired. Okay? The system shall provide visible text in audible modes. That meet all of the following requirements. There are 3 requirements here that they must meet. These 3 requirements. When operating in each mode, include a live interactive system. System's operational when the elevator is operational. And the system allows elevator occupants to select text-based or audible mode. You can read the full text in here. The system shall provide these 3 elements. It should not be a difficult thing to answer. Here are the dimensions. These are the dimensions for the height. It's 35 inches minimum to the emergency call button and 48-inch maximum, typical for all the call buttons. Okay. All right, let's move on. This talks about the arrangement if you've got 3, or you've got 2 banks of 2, or you've got a bank of 3 and a bank of 2. Elevators are typically not allowed as egress unless part of an accessible means of egress per these, okay, in high-rise buildings. All right. You're supposed to use stairs, remember? In buildings 4 stories or more in height, at least one elevator is to be provided for fire department emergency access to the floors. In other words, it's got to be able to get a gurney in here. All right? All right. Okay. Elevator machine rooms. Elevator machine rooms. Elevator machine rooms. I got this out of order, but that's okay. Elevator machine rooms must have an independent ventilation and air conditioning system. Elevator machine rooms must have an independent ventilation or air conditioning system to protect against overheating of the control equipment, independent from the building. Elevator machine rooms. Now let's go back up here to what's called a fire service access elevator. Fireman's elevators are fireman's elevator in the United States. Fireman's service elevator in Japan is a typical elevator, a type of elevator which enables firefighters to use in order to rescue people who may be trapped on upper floors during an event of a fire in a building. They're specially designed elevators. Okay, that is a fire service access elevator. It helps in suppressing the fire and evacuating people. Now, what about escalators? This should come, you shouldn't even have to take this course to answer this question. Escalators. Escalators are not to be used as a component of required egress, okay? They're not. In case of a fire, you need to use the fire stairs, okay? Escalator may not be part of a means of egress. It's a convenient means of moving people, all right? And this describes buildings fully sprinkled and stuff like that. Most of the times these will be automatically shut off anyway and blocked in that case. All right, so the answer is no, they cannot be used, okay, as a required means of egress. You must provide fire exits, stairs. Special construction. Let's move on to chapter 22. Chapter 31 of the IBC. Chapter 31 of the IBC is for special construction. It is a catch-all for miscellaneous building systems or elements that are not large enough occupancies or uses to merit including in chapter 4. Okay? They're special. It's kind of a catch-all. But it's chapter 31 of the IBC. All right? When confronted with an odd situation in a building, it's worth examining this chapter to see if it contains guidance for the issue at hand. The elements included in chapter 31 are listed on the following pages with a brief description of the construction elements addressed. And they're going to touch on detail upon these elements most likely to be found in typical projects. So, Chapter 31 of the IBC is for special construction, and it's referred to as a catch-all. All right, let's see what we have in here. There are 14 special construction structures. 14 of them that fall under special construction. And we talked about all these different structures in CNBT 1311. Membrane structures, such as tents, like Friata, right? Temporary structures, pedestrian walkways and tunnels. There's 3. And option 1, option 2, and option 3 of pedestrians. And these things are special constructions and can be quite of a challenge sometimes between 2 buildings for the structural engineer. And your fire barriers and controls and egresses of especially if you're going to use it as an egress. Let's say these upper floors and this building's on fire and this one's not, and you're trying to get them out this way. But anyway, so there's 4 options there. The 4th one is awnings and canopies. Those things hang off the side of a building. All right. Marquees, like a movie theater. Signs, telecommunications and broadcast towers. This is the 7th one. Swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs are 8. Automatic vehicular gates, 9. Solar energy systems, solar panels is 10. Greenhouses is the 11th. Relocatable buildings, temporary buildings like you would see on a construction site, or for a special event, maybe like the rodeo, where they bring in relocatable buildings for restaurants and the wine yard and that kind of stuff. The wine garden that was out there at the rodeo. And public use restroom buildings in flood hazard areas. Okay, it's 13. And the 14th one is intermodal shipping containers used for repurposing of truck trailer size steel shipping containers for building construction. These are becoming quite popular for making residential structures out of in various geometric forms. I mean, lay one this way and maybe have 2 stacked up and then 2 going this way or something like that. Repurposed intermodal shipping containers. So there are 14 types of special construction. And that's all for Chapter 22. That's pretty anticlimactic, isn't it? All right. Chapter 23 is existing structures. Now, what code controls the existing structures? Well, this is going to come as a big surprise to everybody. It's Chapter 34 of the IBC has been removed. Existing buildings are now under. Now let me erase that. That's blocking all of this. Sorry about that. Anyway, it used to be under IBC, but now there is a code called the International Existing Building Code, the IEBC. Okay, there are no longer any existing building provisions contained in the IBC. It is in the International Existing Building Code. All right, and the scope. The scope of the IEBC is the intent to provide flexibility to permit the use of alternative approaches to achieve compliance. The intent of the code is to provide flexibility to permit the use of alternative approaches to achieve compliance with minimum requirements to provide a reasonable level of safety, health, property protection, and general welfare insofar as they are affected by the repair, alteration, change of occupancy, addition, and relocation of existing buildings. The IEBC is applicable to most buildings. An exception, however, allows small residential buildings to comply with either the IEBC or the International Residential Code, which would be the IRC. See, we got codes out the wazoo, don't we? Exception: detached 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses not more than 3 stories above grade plane in height with separate means of egress, and their accessory structures are not more than 3 stories above grade plane in height shall comply with this code or the International Residential Code. This code in this context means the IEBC, International Existing Building Code. Now, I know that was excusing, but here's the scope, and here's what it is: International Existing Building Code and the intent of the scope. So, now it talked about repair, alteration, and addition. Did it not? Yes, it did. So let's see what that means, okay? And change of occupancy. So let's go look at these categories, okay? And here's a legend, a drafting legend, okay? So this would be the existing, this would be a new kind IEBC and the new IBC, all right? What is a repair? What is a repair? A repair is the reconstruction, replacement, or renewal of any part of an existing building for the purpose of its maintenance or to correct damage. Okay? For maintenance, the materials will likely be in-kind replacement or repair of existing materials. Repairs of extensive damage will likely be more readily done using materials approved in the IBC for new construction. The use of both paths, the repair, are permitted but must be reviewed and approved by the building official. All right, so that's a repair. Bottom line, it's the reconstruction, replacement, or renewal of any part of an existing building for the purpose of its maintenance or to correct damage. All right, that should not be a hard thing to answer. Alterations. What is an alteration? Well, by its very definition, the IBC defines an alteration as any construction or renovation to the existing structure other than a repair or addition. The principle of new work equals new rules is applied here to use materials approved in the IBC for new construction. All right, if it's an alteration, you're altering the building. Okay, it's new work, it equals new rules. Any construction or renovation to an existing structure other than a repair or addition. New work equals new rules. Additions. What's an addition? The IBC defines addition as an extension or increase in floor area, number of stories, or height of a building structure. The principle of new work equal new rules is also applied here to use materials approved in the IBC for new construction. Let's say you have a one-story garage and you're going to put a garage apartment on it. That's an addition. Okay? It's not an alteration. It increases the floor area or number of stories. All right? An addition is an extension or increase in floor area, number of stories, or height of a building or structure. New work equals new rules. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And Now we finally get to change of occupancy. So the change of occupancy, the IEBC defined for change of occupancy reads, any of the following shall be considered as a change of occupancy, where the current IBC requires a greater degree of safety, accessibility, structural strength, fire protection, means of egress, ventilation or sanitation than is existing in the current building structure. Okay, there are three things. Any change in the occupancy classification of a building or structure, the occupancies are as listed in IBC Chapter 3. Any change in the purpose or a change in the level of activity within a building or structure is a change of occupancy. Any change of use, okay? All right. IBC further defines change of use as a change in the use of a building or a portion of a building within the same group classification, for which there is a change in the application of code requirements. A change of use, which may still be in the same occupancy class, could trigger a need to make a building improvements if, in the opinion of the building official, the new use increases the necessary level of health, safety, and welfare measures needed by building users. For example, a takeout restaurant with no seating would still be considered to be a B occupancy, but would have different requirements for cooking appliances and ventilation than would a conventional office space. Okay, so we can take an office space and we want to make some changes, okay, and we're going to the conversion of an existing space to a takeout pizzeria would be a distinct change of use, but would still be a B occupancy. This would take more modification and would likely require more alteration work than a change of occupancy to a small retail shop, right? Okay, because you're going to have health requirements, kitchen and ventilation stuff, grease filters, and special ventilation for the kitchen and that sort of stuff. Okay. Compliance methods. Okay. The detailed analysis of compliance methods is beyond the scope of this book. Briefly, however, there are three compliance methods available for project proponents to choose to apply. Prescriptive compliance method, the most likely would be to use for the widest range of projects. Work area method determines criteria for new work based on the extent of the altered or added spaces. And the performance method applies formulas relating work in existing buildings to desired outcomes using the IBC criteria. So, this is the definition of change of occupancy. Let's go back over that one more time. Okay. Change of occupancy is defined. Any of the following shall be considered as a change of occupancy, where the current IBC requires a greater degree of safety, accessibility, structural strength, fire protection, means of egress, ventilation, or sanitation that is existing in the current building or structure. Any change in the occupancy classification of a building or structure, the occupancies are listed in the IBC Chapter 3. That's one. Number two, any change in the purpose of or a change in the level of activity within a building or structure, and any change of use. All right, that should pretty well sum that up. That should also be an easy answer for you. Now we're to the bibliography. That means, boys and girls, we're done with the book, and we're done with week 5. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I have tried to make this as painless as possible. Buildings codes, if we went through everything in this book, we would all need some kind of counseling, I think. But this gives you a general idea of how the codes are structured. Your mileage is going to vary, and your real education in the building code will be when you graduate and go to work for an architect or an engineering firm, and you're actually delving into this in the real world. As is everything that we're doing here, we're giving you a basic vocabulary and ideology of how things are set up, but your real learning will be when you actually go to work and start applying this in the industry. I'm always here for you. Good luck. Hope this has been somewhat educational, and this is the shortest video I think of all of them. We're only at 25 minutes, but this is the end of the rodeo. So we'll hopefully talk with each other later. Bye bye.